initial L. Doesn't stand for anything.
Can you repeat?
11/8/52.
And your address?
1981. Nottingham Drive. Casper, Wyoming.
And how long have you been back there?
Oh, we moved to Casper from Edgerton, Wyoming, in '85. December 1, '85, when I moved into Casper.
Where were you born, Jimmy?
Born in Houston, Texas.
And how long did you live in Houston then?
I moved to Wyoming when I was 18.
So you spent,
I came to Casper June 10th, 1971. The first time I came to Casper and stood on the steps of the Burlington Northern doorway down there and looked up the street and just wondered where were all the people.
yeah. What were your parents' names, or what are they?
My father's name is James L. Simmons Sr.
Your mother?
My mother is Rosa, R-O-S-A, May, M-A-E, Frances Simmons.
Her maiden name?
Her maiden name is Frances.
What did your parents do in Texas?
My father was a ceramic tile contractor, and he built homes.
Your mother?
Homemaker. And she's also a supervisor. She retired as a supervisor, janitorial supervisor at Aldine High School.
Brothers and sisters?
I have one brother.
His name?
His name is James Leroy Simmons.
Is he still in Texas, or is he here? Or?
He's in Riverdale, Georgia.
And just the one brother then?
One brother and four sisters.
And their name?
My oldest sister's name is Billie Jean.
And where does she live?
She lives in Waterproof, Louisiana.
Okay.
And my second oldest sister is Rosa May.
And she's in?
Houston. And Joan Elizabeth. She's in Waterproof, Louisiana.
Waterproof?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Well, it's I'll tell you my last sister, and I'll tell you the story about Waterproof. My last sister's name is Maria Rosa. She was named after a business associate of my dad. Went mining together down in San Luis Potosí, mining for mercury. And he was a brigadier general. His name was Brigadier General Rody, former Brigadier General Rody. And he had married a Mexican lady named Maria Rosa. She passed away. My sister was born in the 60s, 65, and my dad named my sister after Brigadier General Rody's wife. And about Waterproof, it's a little city right on the Mississippi River, and when the Mississippi River floods, it used to flood the town. And so the Corps of Engineers came in and built a huge levee around, out away from the town, and they waterproofed the town. So
Where is Maria Rosa now?
she's in Houston.
So you attended the Houston Public Schools then?
I attended the Houston Public Schools. I attended Aldine Senior High School in Houston, Texas. I was the first black player to ever play any type of sports there. And, I came along during a time when busing, the integration movement was on in the late 60s. I played at the first football game where Aldine Senior High School, which was predominantly white, I'd say probably 1,500 kids and maybe 7 blacks in the whole school. And I played in the first football game that they had there. And I was the only black player on Aldine's team, and we played George Washington Carver. And it was really a sight to see when you have the stadium, one side is all black, one side is all white. You're hearing some of everything being shouted back and forth across. When I was tackled on the field, I was kicked and spit on and bit. It was outrageous. My second year of playing varsity football, we had to play Carver again, and they sent me black roses and notes, threats.
Because you were playing on a predominantly white team, is that?
Predominantly, it was all white.
Yeah, okay.
And I was called a traitor, and they used a lot of racial slurs, of course. And
Were you part of the integration? I mean, you were bused into Aldine, is that?
yeah, I was busted in Aldine, but we had an option. We lived on the borderline, and we had an option to go to either George Washington Carver or Aldine. And my dad set us down and gave us the option, explained in his terms what he felt like we would benefit more by going to an all-white school, not only academically, but to also learn some social skills as well. An education is more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic. In the real world, social skills are important as well.
So you guys chose to go to Aldine?
Yeah.
How do you spell Aldine?
A-L-D-I-N-E. I first went to Thomas Stovall, which is a junior high. Thomas Stovall, S-T-O-V-A-L-L. And then moved on into Aldine.
That's interesting. It's kind of like a whole reverse discrimination you went through then.
Well, yeah, my whole life has been a backward spin like that. And, you know, I'm sure as you ask me questions, you'll see it unfold.
Okay.
And I often wonder why it totally spun backwards like that. It was always 180 out.
Okay. No last questions then. When did you graduate from Aldine then?
June 4th, 1971.
You were 18 at that time?
Yep.
Okay, and you came to Casper, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Why?
My first visit to Casper, I was passing through. Before I graduated from high school, I had applied for a job through the Forest Service. And actually, I applied for the job through a college called Prairie View A&M College. And what they had a program that if you sign up to major in agriculture and attend their college, sign a letter of intent, they would introduce you to a program where right before you come to college, you can go out and make a few bucks and then come back to college. I signed a letter of intent to go to Prairie View A&M College in Prairie View, Texas. It's probably 50 miles outside of Houston. And before I graduated, I received a letter saying that I had been assigned to the Buffalo, Wyoming district in Buffalo, Wyoming, Hunter Ranger Station in Buffalo, Wyoming. And I arrived in Buffalo on June 10th. I left Casper. We were just, like I said, we had a bus stop here, a layover here. And then we went on into Buffalo. And it's really curious, when I got to Buffalo, I got off the bus, and of course, I was used to being like the only black that was doing something, because that's the way it was when I was in high school, okay? I wasn't the only black there, but there are some times where I've been the first black to do something, you know, to break the ice and then go on. So I stepped off the bus there in Buffalo at the Occidental Hotel, and the driver opened the side of the bus, took my luggage off, and this old man, I mean, it was like a step back in time, the way he looked. Great big hat, and slanted riding boots, and he kind of waddled up to me and he asked me, "You plan on staying around?" I said, "Yeah, I've got a job here." And so I walked on into the lobby, and he walked up the sidewalk, up towards the courthouse, And I got on the phone, and I called the ranger and told him I was at the Occidental Hotel, and he said, well, it's going to be about 45 minutes, and I'll be down and pick you up. So I sit in the lobby, and all of a sudden, here come this old man. He had a crowd of people with him. And I was sitting in the lobby watching television, and these people made a semicircle around me and never said a word. They just stared at me. And so I really didn't know what to think or what they were going to do, so I just sat there. And a little kid, about like that, walks up to me and rubs on my arm and started to laugh. And so I shook his hand, and all of them just turned around and walked off, and nothing was said. And so about 2 weeks later, our crew boss, I told him about the incident, and he told me that what that was about, there were people in Buffalo, Wyoming in 1971 that had actually never seen a black person in person. That's what that was all about. And it just baffled me. They didn't say anything. And I later found out that they had a pool going around town. A guy informed me, a guy had befriended me, and he told me that there was a pool going around town. And the categories that were on that pool were, well, there's a black man in town. They had dates set up to, they were estimating when white women would start being raped, hubcaps would start being missing, houses broken into, this type of thing. And I've always been fortunate enough to have somebody who was on the inside that could tell me what actually was going on in these communities, so I could sort of make adjustments to survive here. But that was one of the first things that I found out about how the people in that little community thought about black people, and that's what they were doing. So, but I went on to have a successful life, built a successful career for a brief time in Buffalo, Wyoming. I lived at Hunter Ranger Station, and I lived in the crew quarters at Hunter Ranger Station and worked as a forestry aide, and then later worked as I worked on the trail crew, which we maintained hiking trails across the Bighorn Mountains.
And how long were you there in Buffalo then?
I was only there a couple of years.
Did you go on to that college in Texas that went up by the...
No, I never went back.
No.
I attended college at the National College of Business in Rapid City, South Dakota, and majored in business administration and business organization and management. I didn't graduate, but I had learned enough from being raised in an environment where a community of black men got up and went to work, and all of them were successful. That's the type of environment I was raised in. I was raised in an environment where black men were small businessmen. Black women were business people, and struggled, survived, and achieved success. What are you doing? But anyway, so what I do here is just...
What brought you to Casper?
Well, let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
When I left college in 74, I think it was 73, I went home briefly, got married, wasn't going anywhere. I was working for Tenneco Food Retailing Service in Houston, and was making, oh man, just working my tail off and making $175 a week. Had a wife and a child, and was going nowhere fast. And so I called a guy that I had met named Senator Neil Stafford. I had met Senator Stafford, I think, on my 19th birthday. and I met him at the American Legion Club in Buffalo, Wyoming. And that meeting, it didn't seem important at the time, but that meeting turned out to be one of the things that got me started in the oil field, which we'll talk about that later. Anyway, I worked for my dad briefly, worked for Tenneco, and then I just sat down one night and I said, I just got to make a change.
Before we talk about that change, who did you marry? What was her name?
Her name was Susan Clare, my first wife. Susan Clare Qualls. Q-U-A-L-L-S.
Is Claire R-E or I? C-L-A-I-R?
Right, E.
And you had a child?
Deshae Irene, one child.
Could you spell her first name?
D-E-S-H-A-E.
And when was she born?
She was born June 18th, 1974.
Okay. So you felt you needed to make a change.
Yeah. So I took the last money I had and got a plane ticket, bought a plane ticket to Sheridan, Wyoming. And had some friends pick me up, and I was flat broke. I had a suitcase of clothes, and that was it. And I went to Stafford's office and asked him for a job. His office on the main street in Buffalo. And I asked him for a job, and he said he couldn't promise me anything, but told me to go to Lynch and talk to his son, who was running his outfit at that time, Mike Stafford. And I didn't have a way to get there, and his secretary loaned me her car. She had an old Jeep Wagoneer out back of her house, and we went up there and dusted it all out and cleaned it up a little bit, and she took me down to Dooney's Conoco in Buffalo, filled it up with gas and oil, and I headed out to Lynch. And I got to Lynch and talked to Mike, and Mike told me to give me a job, started me out for $4 an hour. $4 an hour is where I started in the oil patch. And didn't have a place to stay. So there was another guy that worked on another rig he was single. He had a 2-bedroom trailer house there in Lynch. His name was Rick Irish. And they called Rick. Rick was working in Baggs, Wyoming. Baggs, Wyoming? Baggs, Colorado. Anyway.
Yeah, I know where Baggs is.
All right, he was working down in Baggs, and Rick had never met me, and said it was okay if I used his spare bedroom to get started in. So Mike Stafford's wife gave me a pillow and a blanket, and Mike found me a place to live, and Mike loaned me $300 to buy some groceries and some clothes, some work clothes, boots, and some steel-toed boots. I bought some groceries, and they gave me a job, and that's where I started from right there, and learned the well service and trade. I learned I started out working on a gin truck with a guy named Ward Hoblet. Hoblet had 3 fingers on one hand, and they used to make jokes about him at the safety meeting. They were talking about keeping the pickups clean. Mike Stafford was talking about keeping the pickups clean. He said one day he went out to inspect trucks, and he opened the door and got beat to death with 3-fingered gloves. So, but anyway, I learned how to work on wells and oil wells. I've worked on wells from 14,000 foot deep, anywhere from 200 feet to 14,000 foot deep, and anywhere in between. But anyway, I learned that trade, and then we had some problems out there in Lynch. My brother came up in 1976, and between my generation, I say my generation, my age and his age, he had a different attitude about how, what he was going to take off of people. That was it. He had a hotter, quicker temper
than mine.
Was he younger than you?
Yeah, he's about almost 5 years younger than I am, and so he had a different temperament. He got in several fights. Of course, I've got in several fights, fist fights here as well. And it's one thing that I've found out about is the ego of a white man.
That's something else. That's at least a maturity.
The fights were racially motivated then, is that?
Yeah. It gotten so bad they were trying to hire a guy to kill my brother, and the guy showed up at our house and knocked on the door. He came in. This guy was from Florida that drifted up through this country and worked for Stafford briefly. And he told us who tried to hire him, all the names. One of the guys is a real estate agent here in this town right now. I'm not going to call the name, but he is a real estate agent in this town now, and the other guys have moved out. He came in the house and he indicated to us what they had tried to do. He refused to do it. And so he told us what they were planning for my brother and I, and my brother's fiance at that time.
What were they going to do to you?
They were going to kill us, and they were going to try to run us out, try to kill us. And so I told my brother to stay put, but I'll go in and get help. And I came into Edgerton from Lynch, Wyoming, and got the highway patrolman. His name was Cliff Bryan, was his name. The highway patrolman, Cliff Bryan, and another, the Edgerton town cop. At that time, his name was Ron Roslin. And those two took a highway patrolman's car out to Lynch, Wyoming, and got my brother and his fiance out of there. Tensions had built so bad that I had to leave. So I was buying the trailer from Stafford Well Service at the time, and I had paid ahead. And Mike brought my money back and said they didn't want my money. Just get out. They didn't want my money. Just move out of the trailer. And I said, well, I have a contract to buy this trailer. He said, you don't have any contract. And so I came into town to the Citizen State Bank and borrowed enough money to pay him off. And we moved that trailer from Lynch, Wyoming to Edgerton. And that's where, by that time, I had received a loan, and I started my first company when I was 24.
And the name of it was?
Superior Laundry in Edgerton, Wyoming. I was 24 years old. I opened a laundromat there. The banker's name that helped me out, his name was Win Twilliger. And Twilliger was a people person. He loaned money based on what he felt was the character, and I had some good references back then, and I could get things done. People sort of started to cooperate with me when that bank was first opening, and they had some money they could lend out. They wanted to get moving, and I was one of the first ones to get a loan from that bank. He loaned me $50,000, my first big loan, at age 24. And all I did was put together a business plan. I drew the plans for the place myself, submitted that to the bank. They approved it, and I got my $50,000 and I got started.
So how long did you operate that then?
I operated that from 77 to '83, I think. '82. '82.
Then what happened?
Even while I was operating that, I got married. I met a young lady. I was a male stripper here.
You guys are having quite a day, aren't you?
Yeah.
I was a male stripper here, and I started out on the corner of First and Center here in Casper. And I did it on a bet. During this time, I was trying to raise money to buy my first rig.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine had been over to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and he's a white guy, and fell in love with a black girl over there. And he couldn't bring her home because he said his folks wouldn't accept her. And so he came to my house. I had just broke up with my girlfriend, so I was single, and he wanted to go out and have a beer that night. So we drove from Edgerton to here, and sitting up there drinking and laughing and cutting up and trying to heal each other's wounds. And he made the statement, well, this is that place they have those male strippers. And he asked me, would I do something like that? And I said, well, yes, I'd do something like that. And he started laughing at me, and he said, you don't have the nerve to do it. I said, well, yes, I do have the nerve to do something like that. So he bet me $100 that I wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went up and talked to the manager.
What place is it?
It was called Studio 9.
Yeah, I remember that place.
Studio 9. And so I went up and talked to the manager. His name was Dick Tanner at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Tanner, I was hoping he'd say no, but he says, yes, we're looking for some new blood. So I had to come on through on this one. So anyway, I started to, he told me to go back and talk to Jody, who was the bouncer, and Jody will tell you all the legalities about it, and the kind of clientele we have here, and we don't want you doing any vulgar acts or anything like this. We want you to keep it clean. So I talked to Jody. He says, yeah, I want you to show up next Thursday, and I want you to wear a three-piece suit, an attaché case, I want you clean shaven, I want your hair cut real nice, and I want your shoes shined, and come up here and watch. Okay, so I did. And the first guy out that Thursday, his name was the Kissing Cowboy. His name was Sean, the Kissing Cowboy. And he came out and did his act, and he said, now watch the order that he takes off, which stitch of clothing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that, and so I was the second one to dance, and it scared me to death. They called my name, and I got out there, and I can remember the song that I danced to. It was Upside Down by Diana Ross. Mm-hmm. And I danced to that song, and one lady came up and danced with me, and I said, well, it must be something wrong with me. And so, well, I collected my bet, the bar paid me, and I went home. And my girlfriend was out this evening, which is my wife now. My girlfriend was out this evening. Phone rang, and it was Big Tanner requesting, or telling her that there was some requests that I come back. Let me back up. I talked to Dick first, because after I danced for the third time is when I met my wife, because the word had gotten around town. There's a black man stripping at Studio 9. Let's go check this out. And that's how I met my wife. She came up and saw me dance. Her stepmom used to hang out up there all the time.
Who is your wife?
Darlene Smith. Darlene June Smith.
So Tanner called you up and you were at home, and
Well, Tanner called me up, and anyway, I told him I'd come back and do it. And I did, and I just kept coming back every Thursday night, became a regular, and like about the fourth or fifth time that I danced up there, the word had gotten around, and there was so many women showed up on the corner of First and Center down here, they had the fire department ushering. It's just too many people were in there. They had the fire department in there. So we were knocking them dead. A guy named Steve Brown and I.
I didn't know that about you at all.
We had a good time down there. Yep, we had a real good time. That
So-
was, it didn't last very long. I say it didn't last very long. Darlene and I started going together, and she finally said, that's enough, you know, so I stopped. But I raised enough money doing that through tips and what the bar would guarantee you to come in and do it. To pay my accountant to put together the business plan so I could get my first rig. So by this time I was working on a rig in Edgerton. I was working for K10 Well Service and dancing once a week.
Still running the laundromat too?
Still run the laundromat too. Yeah.
So you bought your first rig then?
I bought my first rig. When I was 27 years old. My accountant was Don Harris. Don Harris, another guy named Larry McDonald. He had another guy out of Chicago. His name was Gordon Stone. Bob Offlick. They helped me put together my first big loan to buy my first rig for $455,000. I was 27 years old. I got my first rig. I left, couldn't buy a rig here in the States. So I went to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and bought my rig at the factory. I bought a 1980 Skytop Brewster, double, triple Skytop Brewster, and I drove it from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, back to Midwest, Wyoming, and I went to work for Amoco Production. Just a couple of years later, things were going pretty good. I'd saved up a little money, and I bought my second rig from right out here in Mills. I bought my, I was, what, 29 years old. I got my second loan for $765,000. And it's ironic, the guy who okayed it, his name was Geronimo. They were out of Massachusetts. But we cut the deal over in the Hilton Hotel here. A guy by the name of Vince Racine, Weldon Craig, and myself, just three of us. And I had submitted my financial information to Vince about 45 days before and did some cash flow performance on some other equipment that I was going to purchase, some Allied equipment. And it's one of the damnedest things I've ever seen. The guy pulls out a business card and he writes, Jimmy Simmons is okay. And that's all. I never even filled out a credit app. He said, take this card, go out to Watson and get what you want. And when the dust cleared, I had spent $765,000. I ordered a brand new rig, and it took 5 months to build it. They flew me from Casper to Bakersfield, California, to watch my rig being pool tested. The Derrick pool tested on it. And we spent the night out there. It showed me a good time, and I flew back here. And I took delivery on that rig in the, I think it was the summer of '82.
When did you start your own company?
I started Cyclone Well Service November the 28th, 1980, in Casper, Wyoming, where I was incorporated. And we started that company out on at 145 Durban Street. That was where my office was, 145 Durban Street.
And it was a successful company until the bust hit, right? Or,
Yeah. Well, we rode it as long as we could. We had anytime you're in debt and have inconsistent income, you're going to run into a lot of financial problems. And we had grown so fast. By the time I was 33 years old, I was hitting over 7 figures. And like I said, I was over $1 million. And we had a payroll, I think our payroll reached about $37,000 a month. My notes were around 28,000 a month. And of course, you know, administrative costs. We grossed about between $85,000 and $90,000 a month is what we used to gross at my highest peak. And I had 26 full-time employees, I think, and about 7 part-time. So we had 33 people. We had a pretty good operation there. At that time, I had 4 rigs running, and I had 5 vac trucks, and a variety of roustabout crews. We used to hire kids part-time to go out and do painting, cleaning up weeds around buildings out in the oil field, cleaning up when Amoco was going through the phase of cleaning up junk that had been accumulated over the years in draws and coulees and around the oil field. We'd hire people to go out and do that. It ran pretty good, but being as small as we were, just didn't have enough staying power. The ups and downs were it was just too many. It was too many. And finally took its toll.
That was during the bust.
Well, you're saying during the bust. We ran into financial trouble in the last quarter of '85. And from '85 to '95, when we were released by Amoco, we struggled. And I mean, we struggled hard. It just was not enough work. The regulations have become overwhelming. The things that Amoco was requiring us to do just to stay in business was pretty tough. It was really tough.
When did you move to Casper?
December 1 of '85.
It's amazing it was always here. Did you move on Nottingham then? Or?
Yeah, I moved on Nottingham. We had looked for a house for a year, saved some money. My wife, because I am interracially married, my wife was concerned about raising children in Edgerton, Wyoming. You have to understand a place like that is the mentality out there, or the mentality period, or in this society that we have, is such that we felt that it would be better to move into a town like Casper to raise our children than to live out there.
Okay, can you give us the names and ages of your children first before we go on?
Okay, I gave you the name and age. I gave you the names earlier, but I'll give you again. Keisha Marie, she's 16 years old. Misty Faye is she's going on 15. Dominique Nicole. She's going on 14. And my baby is Carmelita Joe. She's going on 12.
You moved here in 1985, December 1st.
Right. And
Did you run into any hassles around the interracial marriage and trying to buy a house or anything like that at that time? You certainly would have back in the 50s, I'll tell you that.
well, we didn't run into it, and I'll tell you why. The neighborhood that I live in, at that time, you have to make an adjusted income of $50,000 to get in there. That's an adjusted income of $50,000 annually. And so, I guess the people around would figure, well, it's got to be all right if he's at that level. And so, I didn't encounter any type of rejection in that neighborhood, okay? Now, just the other day, though, I had some company over to my house, and I walked outside, and my neighbor yelled at me that they were trying to get a petition together to get me out of the neighborhood. Now, I don't know if that was joking or not, but this is another thing that this is something that I've always encountered since I've been here, is that some white male wants to attack me, and you never know when you're going to get it. And it don't matter who it is. I was verbally attacked by a mayor. I've been verbally attacked by a banker. And just last week, an older gentleman that I had been helping one of his friends knew of some of the things that I have been doing, and he told me point blank that you are not supposed to be doing those types of things out there. You're supposed to have some numbers across your back. This has been constant. I have been through bomb threats here. I've had my life threatened here. That's numerous times. You go to the police, or I've been to the Kevin Meenan, district attorney. They'll do nothing. You just kind of open game.
When were bomb threats and your life threatened?
Bomb threat. The first bomb threat I went through was July 3rd, 1987. I came back here and I talked to Under Sheriff Mark Benton to inform him. I was in '87. I had one of the largest trucking jobs in the state of Wyoming. I hauled all the gravel underneath I-80 from Rock Springs to Green River on the westbound lane. I had a highway contract when I had a trucking company, and I had about 25 trucks running over in that country. And the word got to me that there were some people that were really upset because there was a black man over there taking the work away from all these white people. And they called the office, Allstate. I was working for Allstate Paving. They called the office and threatened to blow us up. July 3rd, 1987. That happened in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And luckily it was on a day where, the 4th of July was going to be the next day, so everybody just kind of left. They got the hell out of there.
Yeah, I guess so. What about Casper? What has life been like for you in Casper?
I think that if I would have been a black man that just went to work on a job, came home, I think my life would have probably been a lot better. But when you're in a position, when you're contracting, you're in a position where other people can tamper with your livelihood, it's going to wreak havoc. And that's what happened. You have to understand, and I had to get some counseling on this. I was trying to figure out, why am I being treated like this?
Treated like how?
Well, let me explain it to you. I worked for a guy who was a psychoanalyst. And when I went to work out there because my father-in-law passed away, he was in construction. And the family didn't want his foreman representing their estate. So I was chosen to represent the estate to go out and finish this mini mall that he had under construction in Simi Valley, California. The developer was a psychoanalyst. And even he later told me after the job was finished that he misinterpreted me. He said when I came up on his job, he actually thought I was coming to apply for a cleaning job. He never in his wildest dreams would imagine that I would be the superintendent on that job. So this is the mindset that you have to deal with, okay? Now, when you see an ambitious black male in a predominantly all-white community he explained to me what that meant to a white man. It's like a mirror. You hold up an ambitious, successful black man in a all-white community, stick a mirror up, that's a mirror to a white man. It actually shows him all of his faults and insecurities and imperfections. And the only thing that he's going to give you is a bunch of crap. He's going to dump on you as much as possible. That's what I got. I got dumped on heavily. And it brought out all their insecurities. And this is real world stuff. This is not a concept that I'm telling you about. This is something that happened right here in Natrona County. And it does not matter whether it's at the high level, at the mayor's office, at the sheriff's department, at the commissioner's level, any level. It'll affect and it'll bring out the bad at any level in that white male. I've seen it. I've experienced it. And it'll go from that height to the street sweeper. It'll always show him or tell him that he's not good enough. That's what that shows him. And so if he's feeling bad about himself, and he's going to dump on you, he's going to give you everything bad. He's going to give you everything that's black or whatever. And I've also experienced, and I know this may be, I don't know if this is something that you kids have got to hear, because it's something that you can change. You probably never heard this, but racism in this country and in this community is something that I've noticed is being perpetuated through the church houses. Because a lot of those sermons that are being preached are designed to make you look up at white and down at black. So that's where that institution has been able to perpetuate itself in the church houses. And if you're not sitting still and really looking deep into it, you'll miss it. And so that's one area that I feel that can stand some change. Could stand some reform. And a lot of people, a lot of socialists, I've never heard any type of people who are involved in social change talk about changing what's in those church houses. You've never heard that. All right? That's why they're missing the point. That's why they're missing the boat. And this police department that we have here, all they did was trade in their sheets for a police uniform. I can honestly tell you that if you want to sit down and just call it like it is, I've met some really good people here in Casper, Wyoming. But for the most part, this place is nothing but a rest haven for nigger haters. Telling you, this is the place. It's no different than Mississippi or Alabama or Texas. It's no. In fact, it's probably worse. You have to understand, this is a closed society that we live in here. What is the fruit? What fruit does it bear? What fruit does a closed society bear? I don't care if it's a white closed society, if it's a black closed society, or a red closed society, or a yellow closed society. What fruit does a closed society bear? It bears bigots. It bears races. This place here is what, 96% white? 98. It's almost a closed society.
Jimmy, one of the things I have to ask you is we've heard time and again that the racism that the African Americans feel here is subtle. It's not out and out overt. I'm hearing more, it's not, I don't know if it's anger that I'm hearing from you, but you are being more articulate about it than we have heard.
This is what needs to be done. This is the only way you can fix it. All right, you're talking about subtle racism. Do you know what carbonless paper is? All right. This is the way I keep it straight in my mind, because I've experienced it. racism in Wyoming, in Casper, Wyoming, or Wyoming as a whole, is like carbonless paper. Now, you know that ink is in that paper, but you'll never see it until you put some pressure on it. It'll make a distinct mark. And that's the way I've always kept it in my mind, because I'm not speaking from concepts, I'm speaking from actual experiences. And that, I think that's the only way you can fix things, is get actual experiences. My question to you is, what do you think, how do you think blacks are supposed to be treated? And then, this is what I think the problem is. There's a mindset. Blacks are supposed to be treated like this. And I get this from a fact. There was in 1988, a black lady was asked to research what contributions the blacks have made in this state, in the country, the state, and the county in Wyoming. Country as a whole. The state. No, it was the state, the county, the city. That's what it was. State, the county, and the city. What contributions have blacks made in the state, the county, and the city? She did the research. She said she couldn't present it. She's not a very good presenter. She was a good researcher. She asked me to present it to the social department at Centennial High School. So I presented the program, and then for my own information, I asked 7 classes, how do you think blacks are supposed to be treated in our community? 7 out of 7 classes answered, blacks, that the southern states have set the precedence for how blacks are supposed to be treated. 7 out of 7. That is the mindset that you have here. That's realistic. That's not fake. That's not phony. Just right off the top of those kids' heads. The southern states have set the precedence for how blacks are supposed to be treated. They don't know any other way. This country, there's never been a power greater than the power that we have in place right now. It's never pushed the United States to change. The United States of America is one of the greatest human rights violators in the history of man. There's never been a power greater than the United States to make them change this. The only way that the United States of America would change to be disciplined for what they've done, you have to take them to the United Nations. At the United Nations, they have what is called as the Covenant of Human Rights and the Declaration of Human Rights. Okay? And if all the minorities would get together and realize that they have 3 things in common. They have a common exploiter, a common oppressor, and a common discriminator. And when they realize they have those things in common, they can unite on the basis of what they have in common, and then get the United Nations to put this country on trial for how it's treated its blacks, its Indians, Hispanics, and so on, all right? And once they do something like that, it opens the gate for every country on this planet to judge the United States of America on how it's violated the human rights of its people.
Can I bring you back to Casper?
All right. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We went international.
Because I need to take them home shortly after 4, so.
Okay.
What happened to your company then?
My company. In May, we're talking about Cyclone Well Service now. In May 19th, 1995, we were released by Amoco Production. We had worked for them for a little over 14 years, I think it was, in well servicing and trucking and roustabout service. we were unable to find any type of work at that time to put those rigs to work, I sold both my rigs to the Cree Indians in Abbeville, Saskatchewan. They were assembled, disassembled. We had one rig was loaded into Casper here, disassembled, put on a truck, and it was trucked to Abbeville. And my second rig was disassembled in Newcastle, Wyoming, and also shipped to Abbeville.
So what did you do after that then?
I leased 285 acres on the Crow Indian Reservation,
Mm-hmm.
and it took almost two and a half years from start to finish. I leased the mineral rights on 285 acres, and recently received permission to drill my first wildcat well, gas well. About 2 weeks ago, I received permission from the Bureau of Indian Affairs to go in and spud in on my first wildcat gas well.
So you're still making the oil field
Yeah,
your profession?
I'm still making the oil field my profession. That's what I know best. Although I have a little bit of background in construction. Our family business in Houston was ceramic tile work, so I have a background in doing ceramic tile and marble work. So I have something to fall back on. But my first love is the oil field. I learned to love it, and I just couldn't get it out of my blood. So
As far as Casper is concerned, what's your worst memory of Casper?
my worst memory of Casper. My worst memory of Casper, even though I was in pretty dire straits as far as financially. I ran for a public office. I ran for the House of Representatives in I think it was 1990. I ran for public office. I was at 93. Anyway, it appeared that I was going to the House of Representatives, and I was smeared just a few days before the election by the Casper Star Tribune writer here by the name of Bill Lazarus, and Mr. Lazarus printed an article about me that was filled with some truth, but you know how reporting is, some sensationalism as well. He claimed that I only paid $100 in child support, and I later found out that on the day that he printed the paper, that it was over $6,000 in my daughter's child support account. But he didn't want to print that. I wasn't paying through the courts. My ex-wife had gotten with Lazarus and told some stories, and all they need is somebody to say it, and they have a nail to hang their hat on. Really wasn't interested in hearing my side of the story. You know, it was a smear tactic, and it worked. That was a sad day for me. When I heard about it, that was the day I was taking off. My youngest child was born with birth defects, and I went to vote, and I took off and went to Denver, Colorado, the Children's Hospital. She had her third skull surgery, and Charles Brown, I called Charles Brown, and he told me the results, and told me how he was sorry that I didn't make it. I heard about the election when I was down in Colorado. And he said, I'm sorry you didn't make it, but it's hard to live down what they did to you. You know, that's hard to live down. But I later found out that my attorney was involved in that, which that was a betrayal. It really hurt me. It really did something to me. It really showed me what the guys in power are all about around here. here just a couple of years ago, I sat down and talked to an attorney and asked him, would I ever be elected here? And he told me that I'd always probably make it through the primary, but never through the general. And the reason for that is people start thinking in the general. People start thinking in the general. And I said, well, what are they thinking about? He says, well, do we really want this guy to represent us? And I told him, that's a nice way to put it, the way you say it. And I say, do we really want this nigger to represent us? Is what they're saying.
What about your favorite memory?
Favorite memory?
Yeah.
Watching all of my children being born. Favorite memory. I love my children. And they're doing very well in school here. They have some excellent teachers that we have really good rapport with. That is one of the things that warms my heart. We hear about back to basic schools. I like to think that if I walk into a school and every room that I pass is teaching basics. And I can honestly say I'm proud of the teachers that have taught my children, because it makes me feel proud when I have 4 of my children on the honor roll. All 4 of my children have been on the honor roll here. That says something about the teacher. Okay? So I'm not going to complain about a teacher because I've been fortunate enough to hit the good ones. You know,
There are a lot of good ones.
yeah. So
I know.
that's the warmest spot in my heart right now. You know, so.
You guys have anything else you want to add?
But I'd like to say I talk pretty candid, as you know, and I try to tell things like they are. I don't try to sugarcoat anything, because you can't fix sugarcoating. It's like trying to fix smoke. How can you fix smoke? But I do like to talk very candid, and I'm sorry if I offended you. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry if I offended you.
Well,
I've said everything. I've said everything I needed
You
to
didn't
say.
offend anybody.
I said everything that I needed to say in a way that the world says it. Okay, and that's it. And whether we will never hear that the last racist has died. That's something that we as people of color are going to put up with from now on. If you're going to live in Wyoming, you're going to do it. You certainly are. And social skills are going to play a huge part if you want to be a person of color and live in this state. I have no reason to leave it because it's the same way everywhere you go. I look at the United States as and Mississippi and Alabama starts just south of the Canadian border.
That's good thought to leave us with. I'm going to, Jimmy, leave you with my phone numbers, and this is for any of this kind of stuff
Okay.
that you have that you
Yes, I know that you were going to talk with Carla Downing or her
Yeah,
mother.
she's
Why
on
you
our
were-
list, yeah, there's,
Yeah, she told me to tell you that to call her tomorrow, I guess Monday,
okay,
at school, and she probably can talk to you then,
okay,
because of something she's doing at school, I can't remember, but she'll have more time
okay.
to get with you and send you.
Oh, I know, I wanted to ask you, what was the name of that club again, that you were talking about right before we started? It was,
Oh, okay, there is a national organization, there's one called National Organization for, National Association, I'm sorry, of Colored Women's Clubs. That name was never changed because of the history as to how it started, because they weren't able to be a part of the white club. And Golden Orchid Extension Club is a part of that organization, which is Casper Club. There is another club that's about as with history background. It's called Mutual Uplift. Of course, they are no longer in existence, but they were in existence for a long time here in Casper. That was a part of the organization. And the background of that organization started where the same issues that you would have with any other organization that wanted to get to work with family and community, education. And it started all because black women could not belong to any other clubs within their communities. And the clubs in Casper, I know that Golden Orchid Extension Club is 51 years old today. This
Does it
year.
still meet?
And that club has not been meeting for the last year and a half, and reasons I won't disclose, but I'm sure they get back together. It's pulling together now and trying to come back together. But
Both the Golden Orchard and the Mutual Uplift then were because black women couldn't join it.
exactly.
Do you have any written information or pictures or anything that we can borrow?
We've got some history,
Good.
and I can give you that information.
You put
I'll
that
pull
together,
out
I'd
some
love
of
it,
it.
yeah. I'm kind of slow with it. I mean, we're getting things from people
Right.
and we copy it, I swear we do, but finding time to get it back to
Can
people is
understand.
where I'm
Yeah,
running
that's fine.
behind,
I'll
so.
pull out some of the history for you,
You know,
because it's great.
But everything we've taken, I have put in envelopes labeled, and
Okay.
they're secure, and I'll make sure
Okay.
everything gets back. So,
There was a girls' club, and I can't think of the girls' club that one of our community leaders had started years ago, and I don't remember the name of that club, but I know there's a branch off of the National Association of Colored Women's Club, a youth club that I was part of and supervised for a number of years here in Casper. It was called the Mahogany Girls Club, and we did positive things with kids. Again, we worked with the family, we worked with part of the education and the different activities that kids wanted to belong to. We gave different small scholarships to kids when they wanted to, say, go to some kind of educational camp or sports camp or whatever.
And that's not meeting anymore either.
No,
What years was that running at Mahogany Girls Club?
I can't remember, but I'll pull that out too for
Okay,
you.
great.
There were a number of girls here in the community that were a part of that. Of course, they're adults now.
Any other people you think we ought to interview them?
Let's see, if you've interviewed the Ruckers, I'm trying to see who at our church got. Buddy Thornton. I think I've heard of him. Jerry Sweets. Mike Feynman.
What does Buddy Thornton do, do you know?
And I know he's retired, but I don't know what his background is, and I do know that Jerry Sweets, I don't know what his job is. I know he's not working now.
And Mike Bynum?
Mike used to work for the city, and because of health reasons, Mike is no longer employed.
They're all part of the church, though?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
anybody else?
Let's see. That's what it would be.
No, if you can't think right now, that's
Clementine
fine.
Ross, have you met
Clementine
her?
has refused to be interviewed.
Okay.
She says we're just stirring things up.
Oh, okay. And we're making a comment.
And Claudette Ortiz told
Okay.
me,
Okay.
that's Clementine's or
Yes.
Clementine's.
Yes.
But if you think of anybody else, you know my
Okay.
extension at school's 864,
Okay.
and just feel free to call it anytime. There's an answering machine.
Okay.
And like I said, I'll be forwarding a graduation list to you that I would like you to look over. And it is funny because I went up to look at the 97
Yeah.
graduation annual at Kelly Walsh about 2 weeks ago
Okay.
because I wanted to update. And there were people, I couldn't tell if they were Afro-American or
Yeah.
not. And our kids are the ones who
Okay.
who did the annuals, you know, so.
Okay.
So we've had people really mad at us because we left so-and-so off and so-and-so off.
Well, and
and-
I'm sure that would happen
Yeah.
because you've got kids with mixed races. I don't, and, okay, maybe my question is, back to you. You were getting history of Black Americans, whether they have been interracial or not.
Anything
be-
about the African-American
okay.
history, like
I just
Jerry
need to-
Burge is the next person we're going to interview.
Okay,
Mel Hamilton told me Jerry has a great knowledge of
Okay.
the history of the Afro-American
Right.
community. We've talked to Dick Cedar, we've talked to Marion Moses,
Okay.
we've talked to
good, I just
the
need to know if
Bradis's, you
you
know,
had
any age,
any.
any
okay,
race,
Great,
anybody who has a knowledge. We're trying to be as complete as we possibly can be. We're also, I'm getting a lot of advice from a professor out of Bowie, Maryland, who used to
Mhm.
live here. His name's Doug Snyder.
okay.
And he was here on a visiting professorship last year when
Excellent.
Chris and Josh and I first started out with this project. And he came to visit us, and I swear he emails me on a daily basis
Oh,
now, giving me
wonderful.
advice. Yeah, and he
Good.
just, I had questions around this humanities grant we're going to apply for, and I faxed it to him, and I just got a fax back yesterday with every question answered. I mean, he's been wonderful.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
that's great.
He's
Well,
been
that's
great.
good, so
Yeah.
it's all going to be a history of Casper.
Yeah, what we hope, now, Alan Griffin has agreed to do a video.
Good.
And you don't mind being a part of that video, do you? I mean, he will take excerpts from the interviews to create the video.
Okay.
I think Dorothy is going to be the only one who's going to object to
Okay.
that. I need to backtrack to make sure it's okay with everybody, but I think it's great. I mean, that video is going to be those
Right.
interviews. And we are now on the tail of an author out of, trail of an author out of the University of Wyoming
Mhm.
who did a Black Pioneers video, who might be a possibility to turn all this into a book. And Stan at one point agreed to have the district publish the book. I don't know if I don't think he'll change his mind. He's been real supportive,
Okay.
so.
For some background.
I think with time on it, our goal right now is to finish the interviews by June 1st.
Wonderful.
That's our goal.
Okay,
So,
good.
and then we'll let time take care of the
Yes,